Welcome to the OtherWorldsGG Community Cast. This is episode number 28. I am Hunter, aka Table for Two, and today I am joined by none other than Mellified and Alien Pickle. How you guys doing?
Hey, it's Mellified. I am doing wonderfully. It is a lovely day so far, so I'm excited to talk about some gaming news.
Yeah, I'm thinking about rebranding because, I've been Alien Pickle for a while, but my name is Jim. So I was thinking, maybe I should change my name to Video James because it sounds like video games, and then I could live the life.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Yeah, probably not. Cause
or you could
James, and I'd get my own anime character. And
well, I was also thinking that maybe you could just rebrand to Alien Jim. You know?
No.
Not so much. Well, there's been a plethora of news, and we're just gonna hit on it first, and then there's gonna be a whole topic show about it, so that way we don't waste the news. But we do want to acknowledge the fact that we are very much aware of the Steam Deck. It is a thing. Both Mellified and I have reserved a slot in the queue to be able to order one of these suckers.
I have reserved the right to laugh when you get one.
So we'll talk about all of that in the next show. It'll be a whole show about the Steam Deck, but we do want to go ahead
and the Nintendo Switch OLED.
Yeah, and
also got announced.
Yeah, so we'll handle all of those in one big huge chunk. But moving right along, there's been a few games, a few announcements, some mods, some all kinds of stuff going on out there right now that I'm really excited about. I think one of the big ones that Jim got really excited for was the fact that there was a whole TIE Fighter remake total conversion mod for X-Wing Alliance that came out. Finally, it's been in the works for many years, but this guy finally came out with the full total conversion for X-Wing Alliance to port in TIE Fighter into the X-Wing Alliance engine, all with the new updates, the graphics enhancements, the addition of new ships, old ships, all kinds of ships. So, Jim, I know you've had a lot of hands-on with it, so what do you think?
You have the option to play the game as it originally was with a little bit of balance stuff fixed, or you can play it like the reimagined, because the X-Wing Alliance had a lot of behaviors of ships that was very different. In the original TIE Fighter game, ships wouldn't shoot down incoming missiles. Well, in X-Wing Alliance, they sure do. So when you have a wall of proton torpedoes headed towards a Star Destroyer, the Star Destroyer will just snuff them all. So then that requires a whole different balance. It's like, well, how many extra Y-Wings do we need to add to the mission so it still gets destroyed at the same point? And, blah, blah. So it took a lot of rework. But then he also did things where it's like, okay, well, we can just turn that behavior off and then preserve the way that it was. So when you go to install it, you basically install the vanilla version of X-Wing Alliance, and then you install the Alliance upgrade thing, and then you install the conversion thing. So it's kind of a 3-step process. But whenever you're doing the end of the conversion install, it will ask, are we doing the campaign as it was, or are we doing the reimagined and what? So one thing that I will say is that the reimagined missions, you want to play that on easy, because if you put it on medium, it's like this was a reimagined thing from people that are really into TIE Fighter, and it will just delete you. So, yeah, they made the initial missions. It's like, oh, go scan these cargo ships that are coming through, and I'm like, cool, I'm super comfortable with this mission. I can do it with my eyes closed. I've been doing it for 20 years, and then I flew the reimagined version, and just a can of whoop ass came out. After, it's like, oh, we found rebels on Onichi 3, and then the whole frickin' rebel fleet jumps in to just delete you. And it's like, wow, that's not at all how I remembered it. So it's like getting a whole new game, basically. It's very, very, very well done. It looks really good. As good as you could hope from a modern Star Wars game. If Disney made it, they couldn't make it better looking than this. So it's cool.
Wow. high praise.
Well, keeping on with the Star Wars stuff for a little bit longer, there's a major Fallout New Vegas mod. I'm pretty sure it's Fallout New Vegas mod that's being worked on to do a total conversion to turn it into a Star Wars game, full on with the an open world of quests and missions and all kinds of stuff. It's over on itch.io right now, and it looks stellar. You can't play it yet. There's only the information about it. I think you have to like sign up to get into, be able to test it or be a part of their beta. But I'm actually really excited about this one. Do you guys have any other thoughts on this? So,
New Vegas is, I guess, an interesting choice versus 4, but maybe the modding tools are better for New Vegas. I'm not quite sure.
The impression that I got was it's been worked on for quite a while. So, like a lot of these mods, I know like that TIE Fighter total conversion mod, that guy's been working on that thing for
8 years.
Yeah, long time. So, when you have these single modders out there doing these things, it can take quite a while. But that's pretty exciting, though. I do love mods. I do love the modding community, and I love the fact that we're starting to see more and more of these things start to come out. So I'm pretty excited for that. It seemed like there for a while we were just, to me, mods just weren't really a thing. It was all these like in-game kind of things, like a Gary's mod kind of thing. But it's nice to see more independent stuff being promoted and talked about. It's not that we haven't had like any less mods. It's just I don't think they've been it's not really been a public conversation about them over the years. So I'm glad to see more of them getting noticed. Moving along.
Yeah, we have just a couple brief game announcements. Persona has its 25th anniversary coming up. The publisher put up a special website and teased 7 new projects that'll be announced over the next year. So stand by for a wealth of Persona news, including potentially Persona 6. We are getting an Evil Dead game in February, says Bruce Campbell. Presumably he would know, since I imagine he's very involved. And Company of Heroes 3 got an announcement and a trailer for that announcement.
What do you guys think about that?
I never got into Company of Heroes, sort of to it's on my like list of I really need to go back and play games.
Did they turn it into like Total War, World War II, or what?
Yeah, I just don't know what the third one's bringing to the table that was different than 1 and 2.
Well, that's I think the thing is you get like the whole like theater map, and it's like an open world game. And
well, all we got was a CG trailer, no in-game stuff, and they did a free major update to Company Heroes 2 where they moved it to a new engine, made it 64-bit. So yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see. Sega is the publisher. They've certainly been doing a lot of good strategy stuff. They own Creative Assembly, the guys behind Total War. They own the Endless Legend, Endless Space developers. So we'll see what happens, but it seems like it's a ways out. So hey Jim, do you think that Death Stranding needed cargo catapults or a racing element?
I don't feel that it did. No, I also don't feel that it needed like a novelization or a movie deal or anything.
Well, we're getting a director's cut, although Kojima came out and said he doesn't like the term director's cut because he wants it to be called Director's Plus. These are some things that didn't quite make it into the game for whatever reason, and they've gone back and added them. So we'll be seeing these in a Death Stranding director's cut that's coming out later this year, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, the racing one is like just seems like such a trope for video games. Oh yeah, let's throw a racing mode in. Why not?
Yeah, and the whole story thing of the game is like it's a Kojima ass story. right? So it's like it's set piece to convey, like it's almost like a poetry kind of thing. It's like we're not doing a realistic thing, we're doing a highly stylized thing that conveys a encapsulated message in it, right? So the world very much serves the message that it's trying to tell. We're not trying to put a message into a realistic world kind of thing. And therefore you end up with characters named Heartman, who has heart problems, but is also the guy with the big heart in the game, right? Stuff like that. So for how corny and whatnot that is in the context of the game, cool. But if you went to like a novelized version of that, it would probably be like the most terrible like young adult fiction. It would be, oh god, like Kojima writes a Nancy Drew novel or something. So I heard they were doing like the novelization thing, and it's just like, please no.
Yikes. Well, we'll see how that looks. It is right now at least a PlayStation exclusive. It hasn't been announced for the PC version, but we'll see what happens.
They need to let that man write anime. Like hire Kojima. Netflix hires Kojima to write bizarre anime that other people will just animate for him, so he could churn out like 5 a year, right? And yeah, because he's a world builder. He's not so much a story writer, but yeah.
So World of Warcraft released its latest expansion, and I think it's fair to say it has not been a resounding success.
It has been for Final Fantasy.
Well, and that's where we're going with this story. So Final Fantasy 14 has picked up in a big way. They broke their concurrent player record on Steam. The game is actually no longer available, Final Fantasy 14, because they needed to put the brakes on new people signing up because it was so popular that they overwhelmed their server infrastructure. Wow, this is just a little nutty to me that apparently an appreciable portion of the WoW audience just picked up stakes and moved to Final Fantasy, huh?
So are we saying that after how long has it been? 18 years that we might finally have the WoW killer?
Yeah, maybe. Although it seems like they killed themselves and everybody.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
The only way to kill WoW is to have WoW kill itself. Just like,
all you have to do is get on Twitter and call Asmongold an asshole directly from the developers, right? And then he's just like, well, okay, I'll just take my whole guild and we'll go to Final Fantasy.
See ya.
He cleaned out a whole server himself.
Jeez. So this is sort of a good news, bad news bit here about Warhammer 40k Kill Team. This is the Left 4 Dead Vermintide 2 inspired Warhammer 40k version of that gameplay. They released a really cool new cinematic that you just got to feel for the poor Imperial Guardsmen who get slaughtered by orcs throughout it. But
okay, so I haven't seen this thing yet. So
yeah, this is
interesting.
New.
So you're Imperial Guard. You're not Space Marines in Terminator armor dealing with this. You're like normal dudes with a machine gun.
Yeah, you get a laser rifle. I mean, we're in the future, but
yeah, but it's more like Necromunda-ish than being
the elite Space Marines. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are they fighting? Orcs?
At least in the trailer, orcs. I think we fight in different missions. We get different enemies in the actual game, is what they've been.
Because they ain't fighting Tyranids, that's for sure. Because they would just be like a snack.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So that's the good news. Cool new cinematic, always fun. The bad news is the game has been delayed into 2022, or the sad news maybe. I was certainly excited for this. It was supposed to be coming out at Christmas. I was really looking forward to playing it with these two gentlemen, fine gentlemen on the podcast with me. But we'll see. I think delays, while unfortunate and hard sometimes, are I think, always worth it. There has never been a game delayed that didn't come out on the other side better for it, I think. So
Yeah, so weird tangential news about Games Workshop and the Warhammer license and stuff. Because for years and years they've been like really loose about who they let do whatever, and anybody could make like 40K mods for anything and whatever, right? So suddenly Games Workshop, and it seems to correspond with this announcement of the Games Workshop streaming channel thing or whatever the hell that's supposed to be, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna start our own like Games Workshop Netflix studio,
Yep.
and like all this anime and stuff's gonna come out. So what I've heard about is that they're going around to the fan people who have been making animations and stuff for years in support of the Games Workshop stuff, and basically like sliding up to him with the lawyers like, hey, that's a cool project you've got there, you should work for us, and if you don't, it would be a shame if something happened to it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so they're kind of strong arm recruiting for content creators. It's like, that's not a good optic, their Games Workshop.
Well, it's interesting because I know Astartes, which was the 5 or 6 part Patreon supported CG mini movie, I guess, that was made recently. They hired that guy and basically, retro canonized his video and are making a sequel to it to continue the story as part of Warhammer Plus, the new streaming service. So
right, and that might be like one of those like, hey, that's a nice thing you made, be a shame if something happened to it, you should work for us.
yeah, I certainly hope that it's a little friendlier than that, but who knows? Interesting.
Find out he's working for free, chained up in their basement.
Oh, I hope not. They've got so much money, Games Workshop. I mean, Christ, they've been charging how much for unpainted minis for how long? Like,
honestly, I would like I would like an official tabletop simulator Warhammer expansion thing, because they need to just get with it and realize like people are playing your game on tabletop simulator and you're missing all the money. If you actually sold it at a reasonable price on there, then you would still get some of the money, right? So
Right.
I'm waiting, like with all this Games Workshop legal stuff that's going on, it can only be a matter of minutes before they realize tabletop simulator needs to die, right? Because they're not selling miniatures to people, and that's where they've made all their money, right? Is like selling wickedly overpriced pewter stuff. Man, I remember when it was lead, when we used to like eat that stuff and get brain cancer and lick the paint off of whatever. That whole pewter thing was asinine when they were like, well, these are for children and we can't have children with lead, whatever. It's like, I think nobody ever died from a game miniature, that's for sure. But it took the price up by tenfold. That's also true. And then there's the controversy about like the legality of using a 3D printer and just printing your own army, right? Which I could see, like, don't show up to a tournament for it, sure, but then they're going after the sites that actually sell the models and stuff. So,
yeah, it's a complicated subject. I mean, I think
they're just kind of they want to make money. They've got a lot of money, and then they're alienating their creator base,
right,
slowly but surely, by attacking anything. It's not good. I mean, imagine if Disney got a hard on for like everybody that makes anything about Star Wars. Kind of the Star Trek backlash that we had some years ago when all those projects got shut down, right? Like people putting a lot of effort into Star Trek stuff, and then Paramount's like, no more.
Well, and to your point, I think it like these are your most passionate fans, right? They're spending their free time recreating something that they really enjoy.
Right, and it's definitely not detrimental to your brand. In some cases, it keeps the shit alive in between your official things.
Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting. Like I say, I certainly hope Games Workshop is a little smarter than that, but
yeah, they're probably not listening to the show, but if they are, guys.
Yeah. Well, let's go on to our next story. We've been hosting a Battlefield 4 server for the last few weeks and been having I know, a grand old time. playing that and re-exploring and getting our asses beat in Battlefield 4. I think it's safe to say.
Well, we've been also playing it in hardcore mode, which has been actually quite refreshing, if I must say.
It makes the game hella better, in my opinion.
I agree with you, Alien Pickle, aka Jim. It is a lot more fun. Well, and it's a lot less like Call of Duty. Like, I think there's always been kind of this weird tension between Battlefield and Call of Duty, where Battlefield was the more realistic of the two, or considered the more realistic of the two. But hardcore mode just dials that up to 11 in a lot of ways. So
yeah, my only beef about the thing is when you're trying to fly, you don't have a mini map anymore, so you don't know where the borders are, and then suddenly it's like, oh, you're outside the thing. 9, 8, 7. Oh shit,
Yeah, well, so, in a jet, that's hard to turn around in time for.
Yeah,
sure.
Even helicopters, man, it's like you need to like abort fast. So, yeah.
Well, we got a ton of Battlefield 2042 news. This is the next game in the franchise, and the one that we're all kind of excited about. That's why
please have a tight mode. Please have a tight mode. Please have a tight mode.
Well, we got a little bit of news that may not be that, unfortunately, but let's go through it all. So, server filling AI soldiers will not be optional. You will have full servers, and then you'll just boot the AI out as new people join. Apparently,
thank God.
That's actually not bad.
We wished for that out loud while we were.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and it's kind of how it used to be too with like 1942. Like you just like start up a game and play, and then like your friends would join, and it would just kick out an AI and replace them with a player.
Oh yeah, I'm totally in favor of this. I didn't mean to suggest otherwise. I think it's great. It's just was interesting news because it's certainly not the way it's been for a few years now.
Well, we've observed since actually running a server now. We have observed how the ebb and flow of population works, and if you don't have anybody on the server, it's a hell of a hard time to get people on the server. But once you get like 5, 6 people on the server, then it's slam full instantly. Like, the world just discovers it, right? So, and I think it's their shitty sorting algorithm where it's like, I can't find the server. It doesn't even exist until it gets like 10 people on it, and then it will show up in the normal filters.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if they pad them out with AI guys, then maybe that won't be the case, or maybe they'll still screw up their filter. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, here's hoping that we get a little bit better discovery of servers that way. We also found out that we will have crossplay between PC and consoles, and cross progression, which is the big one for me because I like being able to switch between PC and Xbox. So that was pretty big news. Hunter, you want to maybe take us through the next couple? All right, or not?
Sure. Yeah. So you were talking about all of the AI stuff, which is great. The crossplay stuff, which is great. But did you know that anyone can call in a robot dog?
But did you know?
Huh?
But did you know?
Yeah, you know those little what is it? What was the name of that company that built those robots?
Boston Dynamics.
Yeah. If you've ever wanted one now anyone can call one in. I don't see why that's such a big deal. Maybe I'm missing something.
You know what? You know what I want them to make? I want them to make an action figure of that robot dog, and I would put that on my shelf. That would be great. Or a 100%. Model kit, right?
Actually, I think they sell. They sell little toy versions of it that are like little robot toy versions. Yeah.
Well, I mean, of the real Boston Dynamics dog, that you can get a version that you assemble yourself, and it's a little remote control doggy. There's cool. But I mean the in-game asset. Remember how like when Titanfall came out, they made all the Titans as toys for a hot second there. Just
vaguely, yeah. Well, yeah, I would love to see some toys for these games for sure.
Then we can scalp them for like
$200. So Boston Dynamics Spot has a mini me that's affordable and can pick up new tricks. So there's this like little mini version that you can actually here. I'll post this in our show notes so you guys can see this. But essentially, it's a little Boston Dynamics mini robot that you can get, and there you go, Jim, just for you.
Can you put it down?
Or you can put like a little dog head on it.
Yeah. No, I've already sent you the video for this thing, like way back in the when.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, you can already get something for your desk as well. All I'm saying. But anyway, we're really digressing here. But Battlefield 2042 is getting what they're calling their Battle Hub.
Well, that's a new mystery mode. Is Battle Hub mode?
Apparently, this is the quote unquote mystery mode that they were talking about. Apparently, allegedly, presumably. There was a list of returning maps that were leaked, including Metro, what was it, Locker, Wake Island, Siege of Shanghai, Caspian Border, stuff like that. I honestly don't care.
that would make for an excellent DLC for the season pass, but I don't really need to refight all those battles in a new engine.
Yeah, I'm not
new content, please. Thanks.
Yeah,
maybe like all the good map designers have died, and they just have to reuse old maps.
Well, I think for some people it's nostalgic, right? Especially if they haven't engaged with Battlefield in a while.
I'm not opposed to nostalgia. The point I'm making though is if you're gonna go nostalgia, do nostalgia. Don't do like maps that were in your last game.
Okay, so they put out a free demo, and you can play Midway for free forever in the. Because remember that whenever they did 1942, that was the demo. It was like play Midway
on repeat. Yeah. Well, the point I'm trying to make though is
still played Midway forever.
Right. Well, if you want to really like play to people's nostalgia, bring stuff in from your games that you haven't seen in a while. Like, I don't mind bringing in classic maps as kind of like some fun DLC, but like don't like hype this up as this mystery mode of maps that we've just played in the last game.
Well, but we haven't played them in the last game. You keep saying that, but we've had 2 Battlefield games since 4.
Yeah, so in the last game that anybody cared about.
Okay.
Well, okay, but that's not. I mean,
you are correct. Because the way that I'm looking at this from the way that I'm understanding this is like I don't know a lot of people who stuck around Battlefield 1 because they came out with Battlefield 4 and then they did that hardline thing like real quick that like no one really played. It was like a glorified cops versus robbers of like tactical proportions. And then they did the whole Battlefield 1 and then Battlefield 5, which Battlefield 1 was okay, but Battlefield 5 was terrible, in my opinion. And so when you see that there was a boost in Battlefield 4, in my opinion, Battlefield 4 is the best one that's out there. And so you're right, it's not the last game, but like to me, Battlefield 4 is still so commonly played that it's still like current, I guess is the point I was trying to make.
It's pretty current on our server.
Right. That's for sure. Well, and I take your point. I don't mean to be dismissive. I just think it's doing 2042 is a way to call back to Battlefield 4 and some of the more modern games. And so I think bringing some of those maps in makes sense. That said, it would be nice if they also did some of the something more tangible, something more substantial, like some of the modes. Titan being the one we're all
like an actual game mode, not just retro maps. But anyway, we tangent. Right. So moving right along, let's get into some Xbox and PC news, a little bit more specific here. The one that sticks out in our list that we've compiled here is a little disturbing, where Phil Spenser, I guess he's kind of hinted at the idea of an Xbox controller redesign that may take some inspiration from PS5's DualSense. Malphite, can you elaborate on some of this? Because like do they mean redesign in terms of mechanics, or do they mean redesign in terms of like button layout?
No, this is basically Phil had said that we're Phil was talking about, hey, we're kind of thinking about what we can do to keep things interesting. Sony's done a nice job with their controller, and there's some things that we kind of like from that. So what people are interpreting that to be is some of the features of the PS5 controller, which is the DualSense, might make their way to Xbox. Now, the big ones that it has are adaptive triggers, so it's a more of a haptic feedback mechanism for the controllers. Now, what's interesting is Microsoft actually brought force feedback to triggers back with the Xbox One, so that was kind of their innovation. And the haptic feedback just gives it more nuanced feel. So, Microsoft could pretty easily adapt that, and it would create some parity with PS5. The other thing is the PS5 controller is a built-in microphone, which, given there are a lot of folks who don't participate in voice chat, might be interesting. If they do that, though, please, for the love of God, make it push to talk, because I do not need to hear any more background noise during.
Well, if you put a microphone in the controller, is it not going to get all of the controller clicks and groans and?
You would think, yeah.
Let's not do that.
So I don't know what specifically they're thinking about or what they're taking inspiration from, but it certainly seems like some of the enhancements to the triggers might make sense for Xbox. I am surprised. A lot of people don't realize this, but Microsoft has a partnership with Razer. Razer makes a really wonderful keyboard and mouse, couch keyboard and mouse set for Xbox called the Turret. They also make a Wolverine, which is a wired competitive controller, not quite as nice as the Elite Series controllers, but it's quite nice. And the one thing about the Wolverine, the controller, is it has the RGB lighting on the controller, which is something that Microsoft also is lacking, that even going back the PS4 had, although it was kind of wonky how they did it on PS4. But I know that the keyboard and mouse set can have the RGB lighting in games, not a lot of games, but some games on Xbox do support RGB lighting on the keyboards. So I could certainly see Microsoft building that in as a some kind of standard feature of the controller. Like, I think it'd be really neat to have backlit ABXY buttons or something where it would change color depending on what's happening in the game.
Yeah, I never understood the light on the PlayStation controller. I just want to turn it off, right? Because it's just like, why did you put this bar of blue light on the front? It's almost like they wanted to do it for the PSVR, because that's how it does tracking.
Right.
The camera doesn't track the controller in any games that I'm aware of.
There were a few. The only cool use of it that I ever saw was the Need for Speed game that came out at launch, and they all have the same kind of name. I can't remember what the subhead was, but you could play as a cop or as a racer, and if you're playing multiplayer, you can play as a cop and chase your friends down, which was super fun. And one of the features of the game was you would sneak up on a racer and get as close as you could, and then flick your lights on, and that would put you in pursuit mode. And when you flipped on pursuit mode, the light bar on the front of the PS4 controller would flash red and blue like a police siren. And that was cool. That was immersive, right? But that's that is literally the only use case after playing the PS4 for probably 5 years that I can think of that actually made any sort of positive impression on me as a player. So I don't think it was a resounding success. A later revision of the PS4 controller added a very subtle line of the lighting on the face of the controller around the touchpad, which the PS5 has as well. And so then you could actually see it directly, not just the reflection from the LED on the front. And so that made it a little more, sensible, I suppose, but nobody really used it. So I don't know. RGB lighting on PC is at least somewhat standard, but one of the problems is you've got Logitech, Corsair, Razer, and a couple of other manufacturers that all have their own standards for how the game talks to the RGB lighting. So it's kind of hit or miss. If Xbox had a single standard and sort of embraced Razer and made that the standard, and all the controllers supported it, then maybe we would see, that become the norm on both PC and Xbox. I don't know. But that's where this was coming from, which I thought was kind of interesting. Hunter, do you want to take us through some of the other ones since I was just talking for a while?
Yeah, no, that's good. We'll keep on with Phil Spenser here. He's kind of like our spirit animal at this point, I feel like.
Yeah.
A little bit. If there was ever any doubt that Phil Spenser is a kindred spirit, and also the fact that Xbox should sponsor us, Phil Spenser says he worries about the loss of video game history, and I think that kind of is going to the core of what we're all about here too. And he goes in depth about how, like, there have been concerted efforts over the years by individuals to preserve, like, say, music, preserve old TV shows, old movies, and the like, and these kinds of things. Where, what was it? There's a whole to do about some old Doctor Who stuff that you just like can't find anymore unless someone like recorded it or whatever. But like the official tapes are just gone. We saw
the BBC overwrote them. They had them in a vault, and they pulled them out, and they're like, "Oh, we'll just reuse these. Nobody cares."
Right.
Which is just horrifying.
Well, and then you have something that happened too with what was it, Homeworld Cataclysm, where that couldn't be included in the remaster because they didn't have the source stuff for that game. So they had to rename it and repackage it, and they sold it as like a Homeworld something whatever on GOG that you can get now. But it's basically Cataclysm, but because they don't have the source stuff for it, they can't quote remaster that. Sorry, I had to take a drink of my tea there. But the important thing that I think that Phil Spenser's trying to point out is as an industry, regardless of the competition, that these things from the past should be endeavored to be preserved, right? Because I think there's a big, real hobbyist community out there that have tried to collect things and preserve things. I have my own little collection of things, right, that I like to keep on hand. I'm not one of those collectors that's just like to collect just for collecting's sake, but like I don't feel the need to have an entire North American release of Super Nintendo games, right? Like that's just
sure.
90% of those don't even interest me. But I do have a very small collection of the ones that I do want. Like I have the Super Star Wars series, for example, I have on Super Nintendo cartridges. I have most Zelda games that have been released on the consoles throughout the years because I like them. I have a pretty respectable small N64 collection because that was a tremendous console, and there's a lot of really good games for that. And the unfortunate thing with a lot of these, though, is that you can't play them, or you can't enjoy them, or you can't get access to them anywhere else. And in regards to Nintendo, I mean, they make it near impossible or willing. It seems like there's like a lack of willingness to even consider or make things functional on modern technology with these old classics and stuff like that. But you look at stuff that like Microsoft is doing. It's so funny. I was looking at Game Pass the other day, specifically with the xCloud streaming portion of it. Man, I can xCloud game stream Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, and it's funny because one of the things that Phil was talking about in this interview is that Game Pass makes a lot of this really viable for Microsoft to do, because it doesn't have to be this super crazy, games as a service version of a game to be successful. They can have an old game that, like Banjo-Kazooie, that people loved back in the day, and they can put it on Game Pass and it can just kind of be there. And if it was, for sale at $10 and they put it on sale for $5 every once in a while, it would sell a little bit, but it's not going to be a gangbuster release. But it helps build the back catalog for a service like Game Pass, that they have these older titles that people are going to be like, oh man, I get to play the latest and greatest EA game, or and I get to go back and play Banjo-Kazooie all on one service. So it's serving them well.
For sure. Now, this hasn't been confirmed, but based on everything that we're seeing, I'm looking forward to the day when Xbox has its entire catalog just out there. I mean, I could only imagine going back and playing a bunch of original Xbox games, even a whole bunch of the 360 stuff that we have yet to really see make a resurface.
I know Microsoft has said in the past that the issue there is licensing.
And that's also technically the issue with Nintendo as well, right? This is why we don't see an original GoldenEye remaster. This is why we don't see like a bunch of these games from the Super Nintendo that everybody's just like, well, why not make like a resurface on like their eShop, for example, is to do with licensing. But I think that also just kind of hits back on Phil Spenser's point is instead of trying to stifle this stuff, because it's not like, look, you have this IP, you have this license, you're probably not going to make any more money, like, or any like grander money off of it. Let's make a deal. We'll give you guys a little bit of cut of the Game Pass money because we're going to put your stuff on here. But like, you know, or, you know, at least try and figure out a way to put that service out there too. I don't know. I think the whole idea of the licensing thing is probably the biggest enemy of keeping the retro stuff around. Because it's not just about destroying the media, it's also about stifling any form, like, function of getting your hands on it, legally speaking.
Yeah. Well, and there are studios out there. Night Dive, I know, does a lot of work to go and find all the people who have the license. Because a lot of times part of the problem is not just one company or one entity that owns a license, it might be multiple. And so they go find all those people, get them on the phone together, and like figure out a way to relicense the game or to buy the game rights outright from those folks, and then they can re-release it with some, you know, modern compatibility patch. But you know, they're one example. I know there are a few others, but it's hard. There's just not enough of that going on, unfortunately. I would love to see a lot more of the original Xbox games, as well as you know, the 360 era, like you mentioned. So hopefully Microsoft will be able to do some more there.
Well, because I have a very small like Xbox collection, and there's a couple of games that, like, you know, like I've got the Obi-Wan game, for example. Like I haven't been able to play that on anything but original hardware. So
have you got the Terrace Kazi?
Terrace Kazi, yeah.
Yes.
That was a PlayStation 1 game, I believe. I don't know if they ever came out with it on Xbox.
They may not have. Yeah, you might be right. It might be a PlayStation exclusive. But that was the for those that don't know, that was the I would say, fair to say, awful Star Wars fighting game of all things.
Jedi.
You know
Tekken,
what?
basically.
You know what? It was Jedi Tekken. Exactly. It's exactly that. And you know what? It is terrible, but I love it.
Well, like, you know,
it's not a great game, but like there's something about it that's also, as terrible as it is, there's something about it that's just charming. So
I so clearly remember Leia's bounty hunter character as one of the fighters in that, and playing her in it was a lot of fun. But it's funny because the only other appearance I can think of Star Wars characters in a fighting game is the original, was it Soul Calibur 2 that had
yes, yeah, you had Yoda and Darth Vader, I believe. Yeah,
well, on different platforms. So that was the thing, is you got I think it was Darth Vader on PlayStation, you got Yoda on Xbox, and GameCube got Obi-Wan, I think it was, or something like that. I was gonna say like
Jar Jar Binks.
No.
Yeah, the Nintendo DS got Jar Jar.
But yeah, so I mean, there's some fun stuff there that I would love to see that stuff brought back. But switching gears back to our previous story about the DualSense, the PS5 haptic triggers has support in Cold War for PC. So if you wanted to experience whatever the hype is about, I guess, about these haptic triggers, you can get a PS5 controller, hook it up to your PC, and play Cold War with that feature turned on.
What do you just get like a bump in the trigger like every time the gun shoots? Like
it's more that like the trigger's harder to pull or feels different pulling the trigger on different guns, as well as the force feedback of sort of the kick. So
that's a feature I think like 99% of players will just turn off because I don't need any additional whatever distraction, right?
Well, it's funny you say that because that's actually was the PC Game article that talked about this, said you should probably just turn it off, because it's just gets in the way of the actual gameplay because you just want to pull the trigger, you don't want to have to fight it,
Right.
which I thought was a fair point.
So even though you can't get a PS5, you can still experience the PS5 controller.
There you go.
They're giving you.
Yep. So, I put this under our PC news just because it's a PC exclusive, but the unique action strategy game High Fleet is coming to Steam in a couple weeks. And this is one of the first releases from the Reborn, re-emerging from the ashes Microprose. It looks, like a really interesting strategy game. I haven't seen a whole lot about it beyond a trailer, so I don't know. Are you guys at all interested in this one, High Fleet?
Oh, yes.
I'm a little bit interested in it. But I do want to kind of go on the record saying that the Microprose rebirth that we've been getting is more of a they've returned as a big publisher. I don't think they're really doing any games of their own as a developer, but they're definitely partnering with a lot of people as a publisher.
Which is nice because it's curation, which has been sadly lacking in the market. So It's just like, do you just want to put our name on your thing as a stamp of like this game is actually quality? It's got the Microprose seal of approval.
Yeah.
Also, this is gateways into, let's talk about Tiny Combat Theater.
Oh, Tiny Combat Arena, yeah.
Tiny Combat Arena, yeah. So apparently the only jet that's going to be flyable is the Harrier at launch, which is kind of, but I can't see that game wouldn't be immediately open to modding and all kinds of nonsense because, that's the nature of the creator that's making it. He is a modder, so I can only see that he would leave this thing wide open to mods. But it's like, hey, if you want to play a modern version of a game that looks like A10 Cuba, then here it is. It's a throwback to like flat polygon shaded good stuff of the 90s, but it actually will run at 60 frames a second as opposed to like trying to play, various flight sims of the 90s in the 90s on your Pentium 2 and getting like 15 frames a second and just being like, ooh, this is smooth like butter. But yeah, I don't know. High Fleet, interesting, right? Like that game also has been in development for like 6 years plus, and
yeah,
it's kind of like a Martian lunar lander combat game, sort of. It's weird, but I like the idea. I just have to wonder, like, how much fuel does it take to keep these things hovering in the air? And fuel is actually a big part of the thing, right? So it's it kind of reminds me in an odd way of Star Control, because it's like, okay, I got a fleet of ships and I take them in here like one at a time and fight. And the other thing that it reminds me of is Luftrausers, right? The airplane game where it's like you have to thrust to stay up in the air, and then if you haven't played Luftrausers, just do. That's all I can really say. It's a game where you fight gravity. Imagine asteroids with gravity.
Yeah,
basically, the ground will kill you, and it wants you. So
be careful, it is coming. Yeah.
So it's basically you're playing asteroids, but you have to continuously make sure that you stay in the air because you will always be drifting to the bottom of the screen. So this thing does that, but then it gives you the ability to like customize out your ships and stuff, and it's almost got like an XCOM base building strategy layer going on in the background, as you're like and it's interesting too. Like the lunar lander thing's no joke because you manually have to land your ship, and it'll give you like a selection of different platforms. And if you land on the harder to land on platforms, you actually get a bonus to your repair rates and stuff. And it's like, wow, that's dumb and cool.
That does sound interesting. I'll have to go back and replay that because I don't remember getting that far into it. But
no, I mean the High Fleet game is that way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
got it.
No, Luftrausers is just arcade, silly, dumb.
That's what I thought. Yeah,
serving thing.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Why doesn't anybody make a remake of Time Pilot? That's what we need right now.
Time Pilot is such a fun game. Absolutely. All right, well, let's move on. A couple quickies. Well, this one might not be so quick. I don't know. FIFA 22 will not have a free Series X or S upgrade. So if you buy it, you're going to have to buy it again for the new consoles. This is something that, the platform holders, both Microsoft and PlayStation or Sony, leave up to the developers, but they certainly, especially on the Xbox side, strongly encourage them to offer free upgrades. Sometimes what we're seeing is the ultimate edition of these games will have both the previous gen and the current gen versions included, but otherwise, if you just buy the $60 one, you only get one or the other. I don't know. I would feel a little ripped off. I really like the multi-generational stuff because my kids have Xbox One X. I have a Series X, so it allows us to buy it once and we can play it. But Hunter, as someone who has not yet purchased a Series X, I mean, how do you feel about this?
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't play sports games, but
well, sure, but in general, right? Like the concept of not giving you a free upgrade, even though the new.
Well, I wonder, does this have anything to do with the developer, or is this on Microsoft?
This is EA. This is a decision by EA, not Microsoft.
This is just EA.
Then this is I was about to say this is EA being EA, and I've got a problem with that. If this was another developer that was known for being good guy to the consumer that pulled this shit, then I'd be frustrated. But considering where the source is coming from, then I've got really not a lot of room to. They're just being assholes, as usual. So
fair enough. Well, this is an interesting development. If you want to buy a gaming PC, but you don't really want to build it yourself, Newegg will now do that for you for $100. Kind of an interesting service there. And AMD's Fidelity FX. This is their sort of not quite answer to DLSS. It's a much less robust solution for upscaling resolution, but it's very simple to implement and can be implemented on any graphics card. They have been getting a ton of support. A bunch of new games have added it. A bunch of engines have added it. So I think we're going to be seeing AMD's Fidelity FX Super Resolution as an option a lot more often in the near future. So some fun stuff there. Moving on to retro. I saw this YouTube video caught my eye. Basically, it's talking about how when you insert a Game Boy game into a Game Boy Advanced, how does the extra features that the Game Boy Advanced adds to some games work? I thought this was really neat. I had never really seen a deep dive on this. So Modern Vintage Gamer on YouTube had a cool video about this. So something to check out if that interests you. And now we have a decent amount of VR news.
Yeah, man, take it away on the VR stuff.
The game Gorn hit 1 million copies sold. That's a pretty impressive milestone. Definitely a fun. I believe it's PC only VR release. Both two games, Synth Riders and O-Shape, are both kind of rhythm games. You In the case of synth riders, are moving your hands around based on the music. In O-Shape, you're moving your body. It's kind of like fit yourself through that hole games that you see on TV for a hot minute for a while there. Both of those collaborated together to license a music pack. You have to pay for it, separately for each game, but it's the same set of tracks. And I thought this was kind of interesting because it's really, music licensing is a real nightmare, and it's really hard for smaller developers. So this was kind of interesting that these two different developers kind of got together and pooled their resources to get some music licensing done. We have a few stats about the Oculus and the dominance of the Oculus right now. So Steam VR released a patch, an update that improved Oculus Link and AirLink reliability. AirLink is the wireless version of Oculus Link, where you can use a Quest as a PC headset. And Quest 2, just the Quest 2, is now more than 30% of the VR headsets being used in Steam games. And Facebook headsets overall are more than 60% of the VR headsets used on Steam. So just showing the huge dominance of Facebook, Oculus specifically, in the VR hardware space.
Yeah, whenever I look in Steam and I look at like top seller things, right? Like that Steam index for $1,000 is always like the top selling whatever. And I'm like, I don't believe you. Because no.
I guess compared to what, right? Like, is it compared to all of the other hardware that Valve doesn't sell anymore? Maybe it's the top selling piece of Valve hardware?
Well, yeah, but I'm saying if that is actually, here's top selling things on Steam, like of all the shit that we sold, here's the thing that sold the most in the last month. No.
Yes.
No, it's not.
Sure. The Rift S is officially discontinued, no longer available in the Oculus sale. Yeah.
Glad you upgraded, Jim.
Yeah, so my Rift S is now worth like $2,000 on eBay, right? Like it's a collector's item.
Good luck with that. Let us know how that goes.
Anybody want a Rift S?
So this last one in the VR section, you're gonna question my judgment here. Red Dead Redemption 2 got DLSS support, which gives a huge boost to frame rate, about 45% in 4K, which is not a VR story. But VorpX mod now supports GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2, and the combination of these two things meant a much, much better VR experience in Red Dead Redemption 2 with DLSS turned on, because you can get the frame rates way up, which really helps with VR, while still maintaining the resolution that you need to actually feel like you're immersed in the game. So I thought that was kind of a neat confluence of events that made it so you can really check out the contracting horse testicles in the game. So I know.
Excellent.
I want to see a developer interview with the guy that was assigned to develop the horse contraction.
Yeah. So
be like, what kind of research did you do? Did you go to farms and actually like
Yikes. Okay. So following its relisting on PlayStation Network, we're into our couple PlayStation stories. Cyberpunk 2077 has found itself to be a top seller. So clearly there was pent-up demand for Cyberpunk on the PlayStation side of things.
You know what there's pent-up demand for? Like real PlayStation news.
Well, yeah. And this next piece is not good news. I was actually kind of excited when I saw that God of War coming to PlayStation Now. It's a game I've been meaning to play. I kept meaning to get to. I haven't. It is on. Got a 4K 60 upgrade on the PS5, so that was my plan where I was going to play it. But they did add it to PS Now, which I thought was great, because people who otherwise wouldn't get to experience this apparent masterpiece of games would be able to play. And one of the guys from PC Gamer, one of their writers by the name of Rich Stanton, tried it being, like me, kind of excited to try out this game, and he was not happy. He was not impressed with it. Basically saying that PlayStation Now was unsuitable for this kind of game because the input lag was just bad enough that it threw off the whole gaming experience. So kind of unfortunate that he had such a bad experience with it. He is in the UK, which may be a factor. I don't know. I have not played enough PS Now, despite having been a subscriber on and off for several years. I keep thinking I'm going to do more with it than I ever actually do. But maybe his experience may be anomalous, but
I would like to
I don't
see
know.
him play something on another streaming service like Stadia or the Xbox,
Mhm.
right? And say, okay, especially if there was a game that was actually cross-platform, you could do it with, so you got the same.
Yeah,
experience.
Borderlands is on Stadia. I know. I don't know if it's on those other services.
Yeah.
But there'd be like a fast-paced shooter, actiony game that.
Yeah, like something that he could actually just feel the lag in, right? Because it's like, but even like whenever I'm trying to play Super Mario World, right, and I'm doing it, streaming it, I feel the lag and I can't play the damn game. But that's Super Mario World, right? So
Yeah.
it's just like, the guy jumps after I hit the button, not as I hit the button. So it leads to much death. And I don't feel like action games could possibly be good streaming, because even in the house, I can't stream it. So coming across the internet, also bad.
Yeah, I know one of the things that I've read is that if you have consistent latency, if it's always 200 milliseconds delayed, that's actually better because your brain will sort of automatically adapt to it after a while. But if it's variable, that actually is worse. I am not good at platformers in my best of days, but I think the technology is really interesting. I just don't know that it's quite there yet. But Hunter, you've done a little bit more with xCloud than I have at this point. Have you found it to work well for action stuff?
It depends on what your internet connection is. I'd say if you have a pretty decent modern home internet, it's actually not bad. When I was living in Charlotte, we had a lot of providers that had really high-end internet all over the place, and so my experience with that was actually a lot better. Now that I live out in the boonies, it's a little bit rougher. In-home streaming is definitely a better solution for people who live out in the sticks. But if you have a pretty decent internet, and I'm not even talking about like gigabit here, right? Like I'm just talking about you got middle of the road, a couple hundred meg, at least, and I would say even at least like a 40 to 50 upload speed, it shouldn't be too bad. So, but that's just me.
Well, on a related note, GeForce Now surpassed 1,000 games on the service, which is stupid because, of course, we all know that the service can play all the games. It's just the asshole publishers that have restricted it.
That's still so weird to me. That's such a weird flex. I don't understand that one, because like people still have to buy it from the publishers themselves. So it's like you still have to own the game from them in order to use. I don't get it.
I'm right there with you, man. It makes no sense, and it just seems like overzealous enforcement of their legal standing or something. And I don't blame Nvidia for not wanting to fight those legal battles, even though I think they would win ultimately, because they're just going to piss off the game industry by doing it.
Right.
Okay, this next one is gonna sound really weird, and I had to put it in because it almost didn't make sense until I read the article, so I'll do my best to explain it. Forza Horizon 5 utilizes ray tracing for more immersive audio, not video, audio.
Yeah,
That's actually a thing. So yeah, that's kind of interesting.
So what they're doing is the game is actually using ray trace technology to travel the audio paths and reflect sound from nearby buildings and trees to change the sound of the car's engine based on the environment that you're driving through. So I just thought
is back, baby.
Well, yeah. It was such a neat concept and such a novel use of ray tracing that I hadn't heard before. I wanted to share that. So, they've also talked about they're going to be having audio kind of customization of the cars, where based on the exhaust, the intake, and things like that, you actually change how the car sounds in the game. So, a lot to look forward to there with Forza 5. And then I wanted to do a quick PSA before we get into kind of our grab bag news item. Microsoft had a really bad vulnerability recently called Print Nightmare. It's been kind of a mess, patch and another patch and another patch, and there's a full disclosure with working exploit code out there. So, take a minute after you listen to this podcast when you get home, go to Windows, go into settings, updates, and just make sure, you've got the latest and greatest on your Windows machine, because we do not want you to get hacked. We want you to be playing games with us. So, yeah, be careful on that one. All right, so we're into miscellaneous. Hunter, do you want to take any of these?
Yeah, some of these are quite interesting. We'll touch on one briefly because I know Jim mentioned this earlier, but Ubisoft pulls its Might and Magic 10 Legacy from sale after a DRM server shutdown backlash. There's this whole... It's a single-player game, right?
Yeah.
And they pulled it because there's DRM issues. The whole thing is just bad optics all the way around. Jim, I think you had a little bit more on this one, but like it's just a bizarre move, especially for a single player game. That's when things are kind of weird in these games as a service kind of like situations where
Well, it's the bullshit of having always online DRM for a game, and then the always online server is shut down. So now your game has nothing to talk to, so it reverts into demo mode. So you can only play like the first level. And it's like,
right.
Well, yeah. So they took it off sale and didn't properly message the community that it was a temporary off sale. So people are like, well, are you going to patch it? And they were just like, hey, it's off the store, fixed.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, not really. Well, I mean, and I understand you don't want to sell fresh copies that's immediately non-playable, right? So suspend sales, but do message the community that, hey man, we're going to have this fixed. Give us a week or two, or put out a patch that just removes the fucking DRM from the game. How about, right? Like, isn't that the promise from Steam? Is like, hey, if Steam ever goes offline, then we're going to just put out patches that take the DRM out of everything. Okay, sure. I see how that would work, because you just replace the Steam DLL, and that, because that's like how every Steam game crack works.
Well, and moving right along, game devs wanted, apparently Google Stadia gets more favorable revenue split for publishers and developers, which is weird because I thought they were getting out of some of that stuff with the game devs. So,
well, they got out of doing their own game development, is to be fair, right? Stadia had hired a bunch of game developers to make games exclusively for Stadia, and they've stopped that. They laid all those people off, let them go, but they still want it to be, they still want to work with game publishers, and so now they're giving them a better cut. Okay, fine. Stadia is not quite dead yet, I guess.
Yeah, slow and steady wins the race, I suppose. But speaking of weird things, mobile gamers have spent nearly $45 billion in 2021 so far.
Yeah, 6 months.
Wow.
45 billion. That's a lot of money. Now, it'll be interesting to see as, COVID restrictions are easing and as people are getting back out into the world, if that changes this velocity at all. But
I think this is an interesting point of conversation because we've talked about this before. The console wars are over and it's an ecosystem war, right? Because with Apple, they have the Apple Arcade now, and then the Android equivalent, which is their their Play or whatever they call it, also has like a $5 a month subscription service where you can get a whole bunch of like different games, and you can play like, you know, all these curated games that they've kind of put on their platform there. So I find that interesting. That I wonder if like just an increase of like, you know, the Apple Arcade, now this is contributing to that large number.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that's bundled in, but I can't imagine there are that many people paying $5 a month that would get to 45 billion, right? Like that just seems.
Well, I'm not saying that's the only thing that's causing this.
Fair.
I'm just saying like I wonder if that's helped to increase those numbers because of that. So, because I guess Apple what do they call it? It's the Apple Arcade. I think that's actually they're trying to really push that pretty heavily from what I've been seeing. So,
yes, and they're bundling it with their, you know, sort of all access pass that they have now for Apple ecosystem.
Well, in more good guy Xbox, Microsoft, Bethesda news, they donated $10,000 to the Humane Society in honor of dog meat. Aww.
Yeah, the actual dog who was the inspiration for dog meat died recently, so this was a way to remember him, which I thought was very nice. So, oh boy. So this is just like a nice reminder. One of the things we talk about at Other Worlds is the GG, the good game part of our name, and we want to, you know, have fun together and be nice to each other. And you know, we've all had our moments of being a little bit grumpy with each other, and we own it. We apologize. We move on. And you know, part of the gaming community can be hella toxic, and we got a little insight into what it's like for the game developers, because the 2K community director Corey Endress posted a handful of tweets. I saw this on Tech Raptor, discussing just the torrent of abuse that he got in this role. He said that he had people fly to his city or take pictures of his car with his license plate at malls. He's had to walk through places with his family with a hoodie over his head. He's been hacked, vilified to the point of needing therapy, and was offered bodyguards and protection as a result of all of this. So, you know, there's definitely a downside to anonymity because it enables this sort of behavior without consequence. But
so wait, a question about that though. Are video games like the only fandom where the creators are basically stalked?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So is that just like, this is the way culture is in the internet era, is now we can just stalk and harass anybody that makes anything? Because that'll make them make higher quality things, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, that's, you know, that does seem to be the case. I know, you know, Ryan Johnson talked about a lot of abuse from Star Wars fans.
Okay, but I mean unjustified.
Well, yeah, I may personally agree with that, but I don't think it's ever appropriate to send somebody a death threat.
No, it's
right?
not.
Like,
but
you made a crappy Star Wars movie. I don't like your work. I think it sucked. You know,
yeah, don't kill him. Just his career.
Well, you know. But I think
never work again will be fine.
Oh my god!
At least not never work again on Star Wars. I think I'd be fine with that. But
yes,
I think this was just a good reminder. Like I say, it ties into what we try to do at Other Worlds with the good game part of our name, and just a good reminder. Like, as mad as I am that a game didn't live up to my expectations, that's not an excuse to take that out on the people who worked on it. So I just wanted to pass that one along.
Well,
and why do they go after the creator of the game when why don't you look at the publisher that pushed that shit out the door 6 months early or whatever? Like,
absolutely,
okay, Cyberpunk. Because first off, the story about Cyberpunk being super popular on PlayStation now that it has been put back on the store, I think is a testament to how clearly PlayStation owners don't know how to take a hint, because right. But the other thing is, like, the actual blame of that debacle is not really with the developer. It's with the suits in the other room that made the developer keep a schedule that was terrible.
Yep.
So, yeah. So at that point, it's like, well, how come they're not doxing out? Here's the actual suits that did this, because then you would actually have impact from your threats, because those people would learn that it's your ass if you do it. You're the one that's going to have all this discomfort, not the creator that's just trying to make a good thing. You know? So it's kind of like, if you're going to be an asshole to the right people.
There you go.
Well, we've got a few more news here, but I think we need to probably wrap this up. And I'm going to end on a very good note. There is good news in all of this, guys. That there's the official Mass Effect body pillows are back in stock, baby. So you can get so you can get your Garrus fantasies on. That's right.
Or Tally. I mean, let's not limit ourselves. Garrus is wonderful, but Tally is also available. So,
see, I feel like Garrus is just the kind of person who would hold you after. You know, he just.
On that note, check out our discord.otherworlds.gg. We are doing a giveaway, 100 for 100. When we hit 100 members, we're giving away $100 in gift cards, $25 a week. So you could be part of that. Come join us. We also have game servers running. We mentioned Battlefield 4. We have a Minecraft realm. We also have a UT2K4 server. If you want to get your retro Unreal Tournament action on, come join us. Play. We do community nights on Thursdays. It's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, this last Thursday we played Guns of Icarus Alliance. We had a pretty good time with that, and we're going to be adding some more to the calendar pretty soon, so come on over, discord.otherworlds.gg. I fixed our DNS issue, so it's working again!
Yay! Yay.
So, yeah, we really look forward to it, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Stay tuned, because this next episode is all about the Steam Deck and the OLED Switch upgrade, so be on the lookout for that. This has been episode number 28.
Yeehaw.